so much for joining the internal communications video series that I run on my YouTube channel. Very delighted to have you on the show and wanted to warmly welcome you. So before we get started, it'll be great if you can quickly introduce yourself for the viewers.
Thank you, Anisu, and I'm so glad I'm here and talking about something it's right in the center of any communication strategy. And thank you, for inviting me. I'm very excited. Very briefly about me, I come with about 14 plus years of experience in communications, and I've had the fortune to sort of work with both agencies and corporate in-house roles that has, given me a vast array of opportunities to sort of, contribute to and learn from. And currently I'm leading communications. I'm a communications lead at Alstom in India, and I'm taking care of external communications, internal communications, and social media. And once again, thank you for inviting me today.
Fantastic. I mean, that's obviously a pretty wide portfolio, but I know that you're very passionate about internal communication. So let me ask you, what is your definition of internal comms? What does it mean to you?
I think if I put it very simply, Anisa, and that's very, the question is so pertinent because a lot of us do not really actually define the role of internal communications for any organization. And to me, it's simply the heartbeat of any organization, right? And in fact, I sort of remember there's this quote that I read by Mr. Bill Gates when he very rightly sort of captured the essence of the function when he said, I'll quote him, he said, like a human being, a company has to have an internal communication mechanism, a nervous system to coordinate its actions, right? So beautifully captured. And I truly believe in this. And I've, personally witnessed, Anisu, the quality of internal communication can shape the health and productivity of the organization within and without, right? And a strong and consistent communication system can really help it reinforce the company's values and bring employees together, right? And I therefore really think it should not be just looked as an afterthought. So yeah.
Fantastic. That's a great way to look at it. And from your experience, I mean, any particular campaign or example that comes to your mind where you were particularly proud of, which made a significant difference to the business?
Yeah, in fact, very fortunate to sort of have supported the debut campaign in India for Alstom, which was called Taking India Places. We in fact clinched a bronze at the Asia Pacific Campaign Asia Awards, the last week. I'll give you context about that, Anisu. So, and you'll realize, you've stayed in India, and you'll realize how important the railway system is for the country, right? Both for the from economic and cultural point of view, right? From nostalgic journeys to hometowns in the summer vacations to the commutes that we have done, to our schools or to our colleges, to our offices and metro trains. I think almost everyone has experienced the magic of railways, right? And not just passenger trains, even the freight trains that crisscross across the wide geography of India, they play such an important, vital role in keeping the economy moving. What we really wanted to do was we wanted to build on the core benefits of railway as a function of taking India onwards, right? And hence we played on the phrase "taking India places," literally, right? We are a very important part in fueling the country's growth both domestically and at a global stage. From internal communications point of view, what we wanted to do with the campaign was we wanted to have employees feel really belonged to not just Alstom but to the larger goal of they're part of the larger purpose of taking India places. They're building for something really big, right? And at the heart of our campaign we had a hero film that touched upon while it touched upon India, every Indian's love affair with trains and their role in the daily lives, we also, played very beautifully, what is Alstom actually doing, and we have become synonymous to rail revolution, right? And with that, what we did was we played these large mirrors at a site. So Alstom is a manufacturing company. We have a lot of factories and sites. Besides our offices, we had these large mirrors, branded mirrors, which said who is taking India places, and employees shared their mirror selfies across all locations, sharing I'm taking India places because and they shared their own views, and it was such a beautiful. experience as a communicator to be sort of seeing people not just from Bangalore, Bombay, Chennai, Delhi sharing it, but people from Madhepura, where our factory is, Saharanpur, from remote corners of our, facilities sharing that proud feeling of taking India places, right? And it resulted in employees feeling that deep sense of pride. And the results, I mean, I was not surprised because we had um, um, more than 75%, if I recall correctly, 75% on-site engagement. We had watch parties. Our average, engagement rate on Twitter was, I think, around 18%, which is quite good because a lot of employees shared and reposted their thoughts. So in essence, even today when I see a lot of people posting and it has nothing to do about the campaign, they use that hashtag has become synonymous to everybody's feeling so proud and involved with Alstom as an organization. So I think as a campaign, it really did hit the nail right because we got everybody together and said, we are one team Alstom and we are taking in their places. So yeah.
I think sounds like a very well thought through and extensive campaign. And so I can see that the results also spoke for the impact you made. So what, according to you, is the biggest challenge you face while you go about internal communications?
Um, Personally speaking, Anisa, what I think is internal communications is one function that truly sits at the intersections of many functions, right? Because you're not only working with in HR, you're working with employee engagement development team, you're working with the DEI team, you're also working with business on certain aspects. And I think then it's actually a very cross-cutting function in that sense. And that truly requires you to sort of do project management very well. It requires you to sort of take everybody's schedules, everybody's agendas, everybody's interest in a manner that it doesn't really hurt the larger outcome, right? And that is, a rich, timely communications plan or initiative is out there, right? So hence, I think the challenge I would, and if I have to put it, is that I wish a lot of people understood the value internal comms actually bring to the table, and hence more and more people are involved it in a manner that there is an accountability with sitting with everybody, not just somebody who's designated as an internal communicator.
And on the other side, what do you see as the biggest opportunity in terms of what internal communicators can do? And
Sure. It's very interesting if you see opportunity. Whenever I think of it, I think, every challenge, and given the current socioeconomic context and the business context, it's a very challenging and disruptive time. But I also think that with every challenge, there is an opportunity in disguise, right? So, like I said, if you see the current business landscape, Anisu, right, there are mass layoffs happening, there is business restructuring happening, there is advent of AI, emerging technologies, there is so much conversation about diversity, inclusion, and from geopolitical landscape also, if you see, there is such depolarization happening, right? There is, with the world is totally divided in about a lot of things, right? And corporates sit at the center of a lot of these conversation. So I think hence internal communications, which speak to a lot of employees and is the single thread that's sort of, you know, uh, running through everything that's happening within the organization. We truly have, as a function, have a very great opportunity to, claim a larger pie in the strategy cake, right? If I have to say that, because until unless we really showcase how are we measuring impact and what the work that we're doing, the kind of impact it's having on a lot of things that the company's strategy, we will not be able to sort of claim a seat at the table. So if I have to answer your question, an opportunity right now is, with so much disruption happening, there is no better time other than right now to have internal communicators say, you know what, I can be here at the table and discuss a lot of things that employees are feeling that which will have an impact on your productivity, your numbers, and it's the best time right now, if I have to say.
so I think that's an interesting point, and I like the fact about the having a seat at the table, because that's a conversation a lot of teams would love to have. But what is the way in which you can, internal communicators can add more value to the business? So what is your perspective on that?
I think very, very simple, Anisu, just by telling truth to power, right? And I'll share an experience. There have been times when you share a news with an employees, good, bad, ugly, whatever it may be, they can always take that news, right? If the messaging is right, if there's right authenticity. But what
Mhm.
also matter is that there is no reason, um, uh, but to have a correct timeliness about it, right? Trust
Mhm.
and transparency and timeliness are very very essential to how and when and what you're communicating to your employees, right? Because employees want to know what that we know when we know what we know when we know it, right?
Correct.
There shouldn't be a lag about it, right? Our aim isn't to make them happy with what we say. Our goal is to really help them understand that we are communicating, whatever we're communicating is in the larger interest of the business, and there is a timeliness to it. We are not, it shouldn't be like, and I appreciate, I've worked with some organizations where, if there is a good news or a bad news, they take an opportunity right then and there to communicate with their employees. And while, and then, like I said, people might not enjoy the message as such, but they will really really appreciate that the organization didn't keep that from them too long, right? And they're part of that. They feel belonged as much as, they're not the decision makers. And hence I think, it's very important that trust and transparency and timeliness is maintained in our communications with the employees.
Great. That's a great point. And switching gears slightly, what skills or capabilities do you think internal communicators need to develop further on?
Um, I think one basic skill that remains and will remain timeless is writing. And I don't think it's just a skill, it is the skill if you want to communicate well with your internal stakeholders. I think everybody who's in the space should really, master the pen, and that's how they'll master internal communications. And what is essentially internal communication? A large part of our work is also sort of demystifying and distilling the complex messages that are coming from business in a manner that everybody sort of understands it. And we should also take care of the fact that I'm not just talking to somebody who's sitting in the corporate office, but I'm also speaking to perhaps somebody who's an engineer, or an engineer at the factory, right? So my message has to really then speak to them in a manner that they will understand. So hence writing is a very essential skill. The other I would like to say, Aniso, is, and it's not a hidden fact, and I think it's a new normal for us, right? The whole, with the advent of the new technologies, there are so many applications. There are so many ways that you can make your internal communications very very rich and interesting, right? Hence, a lot of success in the function today truly will hinge on digital proficiency, right? And not just the way that you're presenting your communication, but also in the way how you measure the impact, right? There are so many analytics, there are so many tools in the way that you're not just telling the management the um, end result or the impact of your communications in a qualitative way, but you have some numbers that will make them sit and really listen to you, because you have you really use those tools to your advantage to showcase the work that you've done. um, Other thing that truly, that comes to my mind is, and we mentioned, and I mentioned this earlier, uh, the function truly sits at the at the intersection of so many other functions. Hence project management is a skill which is very very critical. There are times that there are multiple internal communications initiatives that are running in parallel, right? And everybody would want their agenda to be pushed in advance, right? It should be
Mhm.
advanced. So how do you really define what is important, what is urgent, and also sort of have those management skills to sort of navigate that complex work in a manner that truly doesn't impact the larger outcome, right? So project management skills. And last but not this least, I think listening, emotional question, interpersonal adeptness is truly truly very important.
Great. I think those are definitely very strong skills. I think some of them are, I think, part and parcel. I'm sure with even with the advent of ChatGPT, I'm sure writing still is important. It can't go away. Um,
Yes.
so coming to there are a lot of these youngsters who want to join internal communicators. They want to build a career and want to make a mark in it. So what's your advice for young people who want to get into this field?
I think some of the skills I just shared, but I think if I have to go beyond that, and so I would say, um, be always ready to adapt to new things, be ready to learn and unlearn, because the world is changing at a very, very rapid pace. And more than anything, internal communicators, we are actually we are the custodians of how the employees are feeling, right? And that behavior. So it's very essential that we adapt and upskills ourselves, because gone are the days that you think that internal comms is just about sending out an email, right? Your internal comms strategy has to speak to, and like I was telling you, has to really speak to each and every employee. So what are the better ways of really taking that message in a different way that really sort of resonates with them? So be ready to upskill yourself, right? And the other thing is, and I've always thought about it. When I started my career, we always really thought that internal communications were perhaps the poorer cousin of external communications, or it was just the fluffy stuff that you do. And that's so wrong, actually. To people who are wanting to be in this space, I would say never think that your role is second to any other function, if whichever sits in the larger communication umbrella. Because as a communicator, as an internal communicator, you will have the finger on the pulse of employee behavior and voices far closer than anybody else, right? So you have that, you're that person who truly understands what's happening in the organization. And if and I'm sure you've also read, and there are so many studies which says a poor internal com strategy can actually have detrimental effect on the financial performance of an organization. Hence, our role is very important, and we shouldn't think that it's second to any other. And very quickly, last, I would like to say, always start with a why, right? Because hallmark of a great internal communication strategy is when it can answer certain questions, the why, right? And hence creating a clear business value, right? Because as communicators, we are not just a support function, but we are a clear business partner, and that's not different for internal communications also. So when you start with a clear why, I think you will get that answer about how your strategy is creating a business value. So yeah.
A great response. And as a woman, I mean, what is your advice for other women who are in this field? How can they think differently, do differently about internal comms?
First of all, I think I've always seen, Anisu, that communications as a profession is not biased towards any gender, because um, whoever has the creativity and inclination has an advantage to excel in this communication in this field, right? Whether male or female, I think effectively bringing the business to life for stakeholders requires understanding of what is their exact priorities, right? And hence it helps that person to deliver or develop those right messages, right? So I don't think either females or males have any particular advantage, disadvantage in that sense. But I see that, and I somewhere believe that women have far more EQ, and I think we should hone that skill, because um, empathy, listening skills, intuitive understanding of what people are feeling is an important part of internal communications. And if we keep honing that skill and leaning in on that skill, I think we will have some advantage for sure.
So now, a lot of people have told after COVID-19, there has been a significant amount of change in terms of how people perceive internal comms. So what is what according to you has changed and what has not changed really? So if you can articulate that.
Sure, Anisa, and like I mentioned earlier, when I clearly remember when I started my agent, I started as an executive in an agency role. We always perceived internal comms as the poorer cousin of external communication, and wasn't the real aspiration, right? We didn't, perhaps because we didn't never understand the value that it can bring to the table, right? So and hence I think that's why there is, if you see largely, and it's still prevalent, the kind of budgets that we have, the agency support that we have, right, or the teams that we have in internal comms as a function is far lesser than what an external communication or media relations team would enjoy. But with the advent of COVID, I think internal communications truly had its moment of recognition. It took center stage, because with the remote and hybrid working happening, employee engagement and well-being became the was very primary, right? And hence people really understood the value that the function can bring to the table, right? And there's these words by Peter Drucker that actually, I keep reminding myself. It says, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast," right? I'm sure you've also heard about it. These words were actually, were manifested, and they were fast becoming understood and acknowledged during, especially COVID. And I think, and now, more and more with the world now staying hybrid and remaining hybrid, I think internal communications is getting the due that, the due that they were deserving. And I've also understood one thing is, and this was around COVID itself. I was working with an MNC mining company, and I understood that, the budgets were very, very little, uh, and we, like I said, the employee well-being, employee connect was very, very pivotal that time. But we really realized that budgets has nothing to do with, internal communication is not just about having an annual day or a family day or big flashy events and expensive campaigns. Just making sure that you're listening to your employees, really, you're sending them updates in a timely manner, that your leadership is engaged truly with them, not just for the sake of it, but truly, employees feel that they're actually being listened to and heard to. um, when that magic started to happen during COVID, I think, like I said, we got the due that we were truly deserving, and now internal communications has started to have its own place, in the whole scheme of communications umbrella, and I think it's going to only go upwards from here.
These are great points. And so, Megha, as we wrap up, just want to ask you, any particular trend that comes to your mind that you spot with internal communications?
For sure, Anisa, I think, and I did mention this earlier, but and I'm truly experiencing this as a communicator that, with so much information coming our way, right? I think everybody's having that fatigue of information. The attention spans are truly diminishing, and we see, engagement, which is, on communications, which is very dull and banal. I think it's truly, that engagement is not there on those kind of communication. And I was reading somewhere that, I think it was Gallup, it said that, average engagement has dropped from to 36%, right? And what's happening, and hence as a communicator, it's an alarming thing, right? And how do we really sort of address this issue? And the idea is, and we mentioned this, we are not just somebody who's sending out an email, right? We are not like glorified messengers of, just one way communication. And essentially, I think one trend that I'm witnessing is how actually communicators are using multiple channel approach to to have that creativity fired up in employee communications, right? And also, and keeping the employee experience at the center, because once an employee experience something and they're engaged heavily, and that was the campaign, the taking in their places also that I mentioned, they truly feel a part of the campaign, right? And that's a success. Something that I can share, and I was reading the case studies and of some award, and I was reading this campaign by DHL, which said "Fired Up, Ready to Go." In essence, what they did, what they utilized their internal company's digital platform called Smart Connect to engage and inspire their 7,600 strong workforce by leveraging music, right? And they created an anthem, they did contests, they did a lot of regional interaction, etc. In brief, I think what happened was it actually strengthened their sense of belonging and promoted, because it's a large workforce, even different regions felt very engaged. It showcased the leadership in a very different light, right? So I think that's where the magic is. Actually, the magic quadrant is where you're actually getting the employee experience and richness and creativity and communication together. I think that's one trend. So we just shouldn't look at internal comms as just, sending out an email or a nice poster. Gone are those days. We have to really don the hat of a creative thinker in true sense. See, there are so many digital and other platforms that are available to us. What can we do to, have employee really be a part of one campaign, a momentous, experience within the organization?
Fantastic. No, this is brilliant insights. Thank you so much. I think the fact that you've been a strong advocate of internal communications itself, and the the stories that you shared, examples that you've given. I think these are extremely helpful and useful for all the viewers out there. So thank you again, Megha, for taking the time. And thank you again. Wish you all the best.
Thank you, Anisu. And I think I missed to mention it. Your website, your blog, and your YouTube series have been very, very educated to like I go back to those videos to look and listen to a lot of leaders who are sharing their views, right? And as a communicator who believes in keep learning, I think it's a great resource pool. Thank you for continuing this series, and very, very honored to be here. Thank you.
Appreciate it.